Welcome back to another episode of Square State Sandlot. Joining me live is Kyle Gilmore, and I am your host, Bill Montoya. A couple of things we wanted to just mention right off the top before we get into the nitty gritty is just a reminder that we are doing the podcast Fantasy Football League. Still got a few spots open for that, so any of you that are interested, please get a hold of us and we'll get you added to that. It's looking like we're going to have 8 right now, so we'd like to get up to the 12 if possible. Just, I think 12-man leagues are better, so let us know if you're interested. And then a couple of reminders on if you enjoy our content, just subscribe on YouTube or rate us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, we'd love to have some comments and feedback. So get those in. And Kyle, you want to kick us off with some NFL preseason news? Or would you like me to?
I can.
Okay.
So we're going to dive into a little bit of preseason football without getting too far ahead of ourselves. Obviously, it's week 1 in the books. Have a few nuggets to take from that. Granted, we don't want to look too far into them, but I'll start with my Steelers. They played the Seattle Seahawks, and all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the game that they put together. Starting out, obviously the quarterbacks is what everyone was paying attention to, and all 3 quarterbacks came in and played pretty well. Mitch Trubisky came in, ended a drive with a touchdown, and he was done for the day. Mason Rudolph came in, and he had, for the most part, a good drive. He did hit a defender in the numbers, and he just happened to drop it, which would have been an interception. Thankfully, obviously, we didn't turn it over, but he also had the best pass of the game, in my opinion. George Pickens, little toe tapper in the corner of the end zone. It was a beaut. And then the second half, man, I've never seen a crowd get that crazy for a third-string quarterback coming in.
Yep.
Obviously, with Kenny Pickett and, playing in Pitt, that city loves him already, which it was cool to see, and I'm glad he performed. It would have been a big letdown for all that hype and come in and not play well, but he played the second half, and he played really, really well. Ended up with 2 touchdowns. So all in all, as far as quarterbacks, I'm hearing little rumors. I keep seeing it everywhere that there's a possible Mason Rudolph trade to Detroit, which is very interesting to me. Bill and I have talked a little bit about their need at quarterback, whether it be depth or somebody to push. I would love to see that happen. I hope we could get something serviceable in return. But that's the quarterback situation. Most of our top-end defenders didn't play. Same with a lot of our offensive weapons, obviously. But we had a few guys that really stood out. Jaylen Warren, he's a guy fighting for a roster spot at running back, and he came in and ran like this was his team. I really, really loved watching him, and I think he's going to end up bumping Benny Snell out of our lineup. So we'll have Najee, Anthony McFarland, and then Jaylen Warren. I really see that happening. As far as wide receivers go, George Pickens is just looking like the steal of the draft.
Oh, for sure.
That toe tapper was a beaut, but that's not even what got me excited. He is the chippiest rookie I think I've ever seen, preseason week 1, and he's going after people. His attitude and his approach, it honestly reminds me of Hines Ward a little bit. So it's easy to get, excited for that in Steeler land. But he, I don't know. I think he may even push for that number 2 spot on the roster. We'll see what happens. If I was Chase Claypool, I'd be eating my Wheaties. Connor Hayward, I wanted to throw out a note about him. That's Cam Hayward's little brother. We have him at tight end, and he actually played really well, had some really good catches. The kid's got some hands. Had a nice 2-point conversion in traffic from Kenny Pickett, and they've developed a good chemistry, which is nice. Not everything was, positive. We actually lost a couple guys. I can't remember the receiver, and I apologize for that, but him and Carl Joseph both got injured. Carl Joseph, I was excited for having him as some depth. I've always liked him, but he had an ankle injury, and he's done for the year. So
My guy, Carl.
I know, man. I like Carl Joseph. And then lastly, I guess this is positive and negative, but Miles Jack came over from Jacksonville to shore up the linebacking core, and he looks fast. He looks aggressive. He looks confident. He's everything I was hoping he would be, obviously one game in. But with that being said, he just makes Devin Bush look that much slower and that much more of a disappointment right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's followed it all, but they've been splitting reps with Robert Spillane and Devin Bush. And Devin Bush's reaction to it is exactly what a fan doesn't want to hear. They interviewed him and asked if, what does he feel about this being his last shot at being with the Steelers and, whatever. And his response was, well, I'll be in the NFL either way, so it's a business. It is what it is. He has no fire, no desire whatsoever. So I think barring him having a really good year, I think the Devin Bush experiment's over. We wasted a 10th, overall pick on him, and that bums me out. Every time I see him, all I do is miss Ryan Shazier. So I don't know. That was a little bit of bad for the end of it. And then my one last little Steeler nugget is the Steelers had a home run derby with the team, and old KP8, Kenny Pickett won it. So
Nice.
The guy just likes to win, man.
But I think the wide receiver you're referring to was Anthony Miller.
Thank you. It was.
He and Carl Joseph, I think, both got put on IR, so they'll miss the whole season if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yep.
Never like to see guys go down like that, but I mean, it is
No.
part of the game. Starting to see a lot of that and coming out of a good chunk of the camps. Can't remember who went down for the Chiefs today. Another one of their wide receivers. So
look at Zach Wilson, man.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. He's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, they said. And I don't know where that puts him in the timeline of coming back, but I did want to get into some Raiders stuff. And just one thing to note is that Josh McDaniels has definitely taken that Bill Belichick approach with the media. Not so much where, Bill Belichick won't even give them even a word. He just says, moving on to next week or whatever. More Josh McDaniels just isn't going to reveal anything he doesn't have to. He's very guarded with information, doesn't want any leaks, things like that. So where a lot of these guys that are on the injury list, typically in past years from Gruden, you would have at least an idea of what's going on with them, where right now it's rumored to have a hamstring injury or, we don't know when he's going to be back, things like that. So he's definitely not making it easy on the media. And right now during preseason, you aren't required to reveal injuries.
Yeah.
You don't have to put together a probability list or anything like that for the preseason games. So it's anyone's guess how long these guys are actually injured. But there was some good news coming out of camp today, and that's that Darren Waller, Bilal Nichols, Divine Diablo, Jonathan Hankins, Rock Ya-Sin, and Trayvon Mullen all were back at practice after missing the last several weeks due to injury, all undisclosed, of course. So not sure what was going on with them, but they are back at practice now. So that's a good sign for the Raiders, especially Nichols and Hankins. They're set to be the defensive nose tackles that rotate in and out of that scheme that Graham has. So I will say the offensive and defensive lines were definitely weaknesses in our 2 games so far. We've won both of them. I have a hard time taking any major stances coming out of preseason games, especially when you aren't seeing hardly any of the starters. But it does give me some concern over the offensive and defensive line, because that's what we're seeing right now is the depth of what we'll see the field if the starters are out. And haven't seen any starters for sure, but the backups have not held up well. Offensive line has looked very sketchy. Colton Miller hasn't played a snap yet, so he's our starting left tackle. But outside of that, the entire rest of the offensive line is undecided on who's going to play those positions and who's actually going to contribute. So what I have seen, Brandon Parker, he got absolutely destroyed by the Jaguars. He's been out since with an injury. There's a lot of rumors flying around that he's going to be put on the injury list for injured reserve, and he's going to miss the entire rest of the season. No idea if that's accurate or not, but that's just what's being reported out of camp. Like I said, there's not much news. He hasn't been on the field, so we'll see as it gets closer. But even if he is, I mean, he's our swing tackle, and he was getting owned in preseason. So that's not a good sign when you're going up against 2s and 3s and just getting run by like you're standing still. So Thayer Munford, he got hurt today in practice, but it seems to be minor. But he is their 7th-round pick, and he played pretty well in the second game against the Vikings. He started at right tackle, held his own. One thing I've seen a lot of, and Ted Nguyen talked about this from The Athletic, they're giving that right tackle a lot of help from the tight end. And you kind of figure when Darren Waller's out there, they're not going to use him to help a right tackle. So I don't know if that's necessarily a good indicator of what kind of success he's going to have, but Alex Leatherwood has been a major letdown this far in his Raiders career. So I'm hoping he can take that job by the horns and really do something with it. But again, he hasn't looked good in preseason either. So there's some guys still out there. I've been banging the table for Darrell Williams. He's still available. Yeah. I think he's an upgrade over anything we could throw out there at right tackle. So
there's still a lot of camp battles too. I mean, you don't know what's going to be available come season time.
Well, and right now we just dropped down to 85 people on the active roster. The next cut down will be down to 53. So you do the math there. That's 32 extra bodies hitting the market from every team. So a lot of times you'll see guys that get cut from one team because they don't have they have a decent glut of talent at those positions, but they'll fit on another team's roster, and then you'll see another round of cuts. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Did you have any surprise cuts from your team that you weren't expecting from that first batch of 5?
No, I think everything was pretty straightforward. I mean, I think our roster, really outside of a little bit of a running back stable competition and then obviously the quarterback situation, I don't think there's really going to be any surprises. The one thing, we do have a wide receiver that really performed well in the game, and I cannot think of his first name, but his last name's Sims. He played the second half, and he had an amazing game. So, I mean, barring somebody like that coming in and really shaking it up, it's just tough because at the end of the day, our top 4 wide receivers are basically set already.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. It'll be that 5th spot. See what happens. Who takes charge, I guess.
Well, and the reason I brought that up is just because the Raiders did have a surprise cut. In the first 5, they cut Marcus Robinson from the Chiefs last year. Has tons of speed, but I mean, he did not stand out on paper or on tape. And they did have a surprise performer in DJ Turner. He had a catch where he took it to the house, made a great move after the catch, and then he contributed on punt return as well. So I think I don't want to say he solidified his role on making the 53, but I think he gave himself a really good chance with this performance against the Vikings, especially being able to contribute at punt return, because after giving Hunter Renfrow all that money, they're not going to want to throw him back there at punt return, even though he does an excellent job back there. So
you got to protect him.
Yep, DJ Turner, he looks nice, and I think they have a serious case for 3 guys making that 3rd wide receiver spot. So that's never a bad problem to have there when you can't eliminate one of them. So the other battle that I'm keeping a close eye on, and hopefully it never really comes to them playing, but that's the backup quarterback position. Jarrett Stidham, they made the trade earlier this offseason to bring him over. He already knows Josh McDaniels' offense being there with him on the Patriots. So he seems to have the upper hand in that. But Nick Mullins came in and played a great preseason game.
Played really well.
Definitely looked a lot better than Stidham did in that second game. So I think the way that it went the first game, Stidham looked like a stud, looked like he was going to run away with that backup quarterback position. But second game, he started and he held on to the ball too long, missed a couple wide open receivers, ended up scrambling instead of throwing to them. The touchdown he got was a scrambling play where he missed Kenyon Drake wide open right in front of him and ended up running it in. But I mean, on paper, touchdown's a touchdown in the end zone. That's all you ask for. But missing that wide open guy, that's not a good look. And it was pretty stagnant after the first couple of drives. So seeing Mullins come in there, and obviously he's going up against twos and threes, but I mean, he was making plays down the field. He almost converted a 3rd and 24, ended up a yard short. They ended up converting on the next play on 4th and 1.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
he looked really good. Good to see that. And I don't think they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks. So this is actually a very competitive position for them to be battling for. So I think Stidham still has the upper hand just to that he knows the offense, but Mullins is going to make it tough on him making that decision and hopefully give himself another chance to make it on another roster if it's not ours. So let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to bring up with the Raiders? I think that is it. So, yeah, like I said, I think Ndamukong Suh is still out there, defensive tackle. If Hankins or Nichols aren't able to start the season healthy, I think you got to make that move. I know we're still talking Waller extension money, so we got to have some of that still there, but we've got $20 million left in salary cap right now. So I think
I'd be lining it up right now.
Yeah, I think you've got to sign one of the two, either Darrell Williams or Ndamukong Suh, if not both, and then obviously you still got to pay Waller. So I think that's all I have with the Raiders. Anything else you had NFL wise before we move on? Oh yeah,
I got a few things, but I guess I didn't address your question. I know you posed this as far as the Steelers. As if Kenny Pickett surpassed Mason Rudolph for the number 2 spot. And I kind of hinted at that with the Mason Rudolph possible trade to Detroit. But yes, I do think that he came in and was confident and comfortable enough that he's going to be number 2. This week he was running first team reps, which that's always something that Tomlin does. I mean, that rotation's there. So it's not saying he's starting. It's going to be Mitch. But I think Kenny Pickett came in, and I think he shut some doubters up to a degree. Granted, now this is a preseason game. But, he's got a lot of people wanting him to fail. So I was really happy with what he did.
Just amazes me and how he could throw that football with those tiny little hands.
Because he wears gloves, man. If it was good enough for Kurt Warner, whatever.
And I say that in jest, but he definitely looked the part. And, I mean, you guys have seen Mason Rudolph over the last, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, something like that. He's not the answer at quarterback. He wasn't the answer at backup quarterback. So I think moving on from him makes sense. But at the end of the day, I also don't see the Lions giving you guys anything, maybe a conditional 7th or something like that for him. And if that's what I'm hoping, that's fine.
I'm really hoping it's an offensive lineman just for depth.
Yeah. Well,
that's
I guess
what I would really love. But we'll see.
Other thing I missed with the Raiders was they did make a trade. They traded Gillespie to the Titans for a conditional 7th round pick. So I think they still haven't said what that can go up to, but obviously it's conditional on him making the roster and making some contributions. So 7th, I'm guessing it could go up to a 5th at most, but getting that for our 4th round pick last year isn't a great value, but you've seen this every time there's a new coaching staff or a new GM come in and it's not his guys. He's not afraid to get rid of them. Doesn't care what it costs the team when he wasn't here. So just a note there. And then you have a little note about
Trevor Lawrence. Got a couple of things here. Yeah, I've caught a few. I've been trying to catch a few extra preseason games just to kind of get an idea what teams are looking like, obviously. But one of the games I really wanted to talk about, I actually watched the replay today, but the Browns and Jaguars played. And everyone knows my opinion of Deshaun Watson. I'm going to leave all that stuff shelved. I'm going to talk about the play, and that's it.
What about the chance?
This is what I was.
Talk about the chance.
I don't want to talk about that aspect of it right now. Right. I've beat it up. Everyone knows that I'm not a fan. But so my biggest concern with him as far as playing was that he's basically been gone for, 2 seasons.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, it showed. I don't know if you caught any of the game, but his very first pass was a play action rollout to the left. And I don't know that I've seen a starting quarterback miss a wide receiver like that. I mean, it literally landed in no man's land.
Yeah.
And he didn't really look better after that. He did have a couple guys drop some passes, but to my point is this man has a $250 million guaranteed contract or whatever it was. And Trevor Lawrence, who's, been up and down and had, maybe not the most stellar start to a career, but he looked better. He looked confident. He looked comfortable, in that offense. And it really just hit me while I was watching it that Trevor Lawrence was outshining Deshaun Watson. And then
Yep.
thinking of the contract and everything going on and what the Browns were willing to deal with, I would be very concerned just on the field aspect. Say you do get Deshaun Watson week 1, which you won't, but say you do, I don't know what product he's going to be week 1.
He's
it
not.
may take him a whole right. My point is, if he even played a full season, it could take him an entire season of playing to get back to form.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for. He definitely looks like he's, I don't want to say lost a step, but rusty.
Oh, for sure.
And that may, shake off, but it just was really, really sticking out to me, I guess, that, Trevor Lawrence was looking better than the Deshaun Watson. So,
and
little interesting tidbit.
I was hoping that he would play in that Hall of Fame game. I wasn't expecting him to, but I was hoping just so I could see some progress. I think we've talked about it before, but Doug Peterson is going to do that guy some major favors, especially coming from Urban Meyer. So, yeah, I'm excited to see his year 2 jump. I think they could surprise some people. I still don't think they're going to be anywhere near a playoff spot or anything like that. But
no, but for Trevor Lawrence, I'll give him this. I mean, they got Etienne back.
Yep.
And he was running good, and then I cannot think of that wide receiver. He's number 7. Anyways, they had a guy in the game that I watched with the Browns that I'll have to look it up. Maybe they were really gelling. They were connecting on a lot of passes, and there were a lot of good routes. I mean, they were chunks. It wasn't just nickel and diamond. So I mean, there's room to be excited, and I do have to say that Trayvon Walker is going to be a problem for people. He was really fun to watch. They were worried he could just be a finesse guy, but he's not, man. He was battling inside, outside. It was really fun to watch him do well.
See, and I listened to the Chris Long podcast, Green Light with Chris Long, and he was not as complimentary of Trayvon Walker. He said that, well, and I respect his opinion just because he obviously did it in the league for 10, 11 years, whatever. But he said Trayvon Walker is going to be good, he thinks, but he doesn't have that ability to get to the next level yet. And he said he doesn't know that he has the vets around him that can show him those moves and things. So he says he if he doesn't have a great defensive line coach, it could be a couple of years before he actually contributes. And obviously he could be wrong. Anyone could be wrong, but he looked really good against Brandon Parker, but Brandon Parker was literally just letting him run right by. So tough to base it off.
And I can say that the chunk of the game I watched, I'm not 100% sure that he was. I mean, I don't know that he was facing starters. I don't know.
Right. I get it.
I mean, I wasn't that into it, but I guess we'll see what happens with him, because that's going to be one of those picks that they dissect, because it was a big, a big swing at one. So
everyone's scratching their heads. I mean, obviously there was rumors swirling that they might do it, but no one really believed it until they did. So. And one interesting thing that I wanted to bring up is you just talked about it, or I guess alluded to it. A lot of the starters haven't been playing in preseason, and the reason for that is a lot of these teams are doing joint practices, and they're kind of getting those simulations in during those. And you see a lot of the fights breaking out between, I think the Pats and the Panthers had back-to-back practices.
Yeah, there are a couple of
them where they went fisticuffs. So. But I think that's the reason why. I mean, you don't want to put a ton on tape out there when you have these joint practices. That's obviously not going to be on tape, at least not on national television or anything like that. So It's a lot more control. You can show more of what you do, especially if you're practicing with an opponent you're not going to face later on in the season. So I think that's going to lead to a lot of these games being, essentially tryouts for the guys that are on the roster bubble going forward.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that it's shifted to just that. I mean, yeah, you got some teams start, new systems, things like that. Some guys are doing a drive or two, but it's definitely all about seeing your depth.
Yep. And then
I actually wanted to get your. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say one more note I wanted to add. I know I don't want to go super deep into the Sean Watson thing, but his side is not contesting the 6 games, so no matter what, at minimum, it's going to be 6 games. So he'll be out at least until week 7. But also, his camp is now offering back on the table 8 games and $5 million. A $5 million fine, since everyone's saying he's not missing any money. Sounds like the NFL is looking for that indefinite suspension for a full year and a much larger fine, possibly north of 10 million. So I just wanted to add those notes, since that's things I've been hearing in the cycle there, and that's all I'll say about that. But
I just seen a comment from Mike Vrabel. I actually watched the Titans preseason game. Got to watch Malik Willis play. Obviously, with the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, with the Steelers in the draft, I looked at both of these guys a lot. So I was curious. I wanted to see how he was doing. I actually thought he played relatively well. Yes, a lot of that was mobility and moving outside the pocket, and I understand that, but I was kind of surprised that Mike Vrabel came out and he was a little disappointed in Malik Willis and actually pulled him out of the game for Logan Woodside to go in earlier than I guess planned, because he wanted him to throw out of the pocket more.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little torn on that. Like I said, I think he played relatively well. I do remember like 2 or 3 plays that I think he rushed and moved out of the pocket early.
Yep.
But I think some of that's going to come with time. He gets a little more confident. I don't know. I was just very surprised after one outing having the coach come out and make a comment like that on a young quarterback. Just getting his feet wet. I was curious. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that if you caught any of it.
Yeah, so I saw some of the highlights, and he looked very good. I think the main reason Vrabel's looking for him to stay in that pocket is because that's the offense is essentially, or how the offense is essentially built with Tannehill. Not that Tannehill is immobile, but he's definitely not a scrambler like Malik Willis is. So it makes sense that you'd like to see him live within that offense, but I also I also think that Vrabel is very tuned into that locker room. I don't want to say friends, because he ultimately has to be their boss, but he has a great relationship.
He's a player coach, man.
Yeah, for sure. Those guys respect them because they know that he's done it. They know that he knows what he's talking about. He's been in winning cultures the entire time he's been in the NFL. So, no, I think they respect him, and I don't think he would put something out there if he didn't think that Malik could run with it. So I don't think there's anything there to really get fed up about or anything like that.
I don't think there's a controversy. I mostly was just curious if you caught any of the play, which
for sure
sounds like you did.
The funny thing is, I think they're going to have a much tougher time this season, just because I think the Jaguars might steal a game from them. The Colts are I think they're going to be even better with Matt Ryan at the helm. So it's going to be a tough division to win. And if they get off to a slow start, I think they might make that move, because when you have a scrambler like that can make plays with his feet, you're never truly out of games unless they're making a lot of bad decisions. So I think that's where he wants to see him sit in the pocket, take your reads. If nothing's there, then you can look to scramble. But don't immediately one read and then, time's ticking, take off. So I think that's where he wants him to grow there. And, I mean, who knows how he's going to do that. Everyone had, 3rd, 6th round grades on the quarterbacks coming out this season. So I want to see him play, and I think he could be a major threat with Derrick Henry in that backfield. So
Yeah, he's got some skill.
Yeah, even if you just get a couple packages in there just for him, where you take Tannehill off the field and do, even if it's like an option or something, just get him in there and get some plays under his belt. So,
yeah, him and Derrick Henry running an option offense is rough.
Be very tough to cover. So, and one other note I wanted to say on NFL, you did mention Deshaun Watson's guaranteed contract. That's kind of what. Why can I not think of his name? Lamar Jackson. There we go. Lamar Jackson is reportedly looking for a contract like that, similar to it. And the Ravens are saying no right now. So it's getting to the point where the Ravens and him have both said, we're getting close to the deadline. So if something doesn't happen soon, we might just push off talks till next season. But you can already see where that contract is starting to cause some issues with the quarterbacks. So
it's going to be a ripple effect through the whole league. And it's not even just quarterbacks. The amount of guaranteed money and contracts going out has been pretty substantial this season.
Yep. Well, that's good to see. Like, it's good for the players.
Right, for the players' standpoint, for sure. Some security.
Yeah. So I do like seeing that. Obviously, you hate seeing guys get injured after you give them that money, like Christian McCaffrey and so on and so forth. But no, I'm excited to see what Lamar Jackson does this season, and obviously, I think he's quite deserving of a new contract. So we'll see what happens.
I'd love to see him go somewhere else.
Well, I'm sure you would. All right. So anything else NFL-wise before we move on to baseball?
No, not. I don't think so. No, I think we're good. I think we covered it all.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention a couple things. A's have been making some roster moves the last couple of days. We already talked about Jed Lowry. They sent him off last week. Earlier this week, they sent off Stephen Piscotty and called up Shae Langeliers, which I'm excited about that because he was probably going to be in contention for MVP of the PCL League just because how well he's been playing in AAA. So getting him up first at bat, first pitch, he hit a double right down the left field line, absolutely roped it, and he's been crushing the ball. I don't think he has any other hits, but he's been hitting it so hard and it's just been getting caught. So great to see him come up and make some contact. I think he's going to be a major contributor going forward. But then news broke today that they also released Elvis Andrus, and that was after he expressed frustration with his playing time. And you know, we all saw this writing on the wall, especially with that $15 million guaranteed. If he hit a certain amount of plate appearances, he's a below average MLB player at this point. So thinking that the A's are going to, just keep throwing him out there every day was kind of probably not going to happen no matter what. And he can file a grievance or whatever, but the A's ultimately decided to cut him because they don't need the distraction. They want the guys playing out there that, looking towards the future. Nick Allen, see what he can do and see if he's part of their future plans as well. So it all makes sense. But going back to, and it's not that I don't like Elvis Andrus. He just has not been the player that he was when the A's acquired him. Kind of knew that was going to happen just because he was already on a downward trend from what he was in prior years. So essentially, it was a salary dump, and we ended up giving up Jonah Heim with him. So the Texas Rangers definitely won that trade, just getting Jonah Heim. But going back to Stephen Piscotty, this one hurts a lot more just because he's from the Oakland area. His family all grew up there. A's traded for him from St. Louis when his mother was dying of ALS. So they essentially made that trade where it benefited both teams, but it also got the player where he wanted to be so he could spend his off days with his mom being there for the last few, weeks, months, whatever it was of her life. So I did want to play a quick clip of the first at bat after he came back from bereavement after his mother had passed. So I'm going to put this on the screen here and let you guys just see this because this moment will always stay with me thinking back on Stephen Piscotty as an A. So just quick play here. This is courtesy of MLB.com. Their
Mother Gretchen
Twitter.
that took place yesterday in the East
their
Bay.
YouTube.
Imagine the
Can you
heavy
hear
heart that he's got right now, and probably the rest of his career and life. He's got to have a heavy heart for his mom.
Kyle, can you hear
Mom
that?
had a great sense of humor. She was talking only recently about her boys, the Piscotty boys, playing naked wiffle ball in the backyard growing up.
That's what it takes to get you to the show.
And now the 0-2 pitch. And Steven, a drive to left, headed for the monster, and over the monster, and gone. And Piscotty has given the A's a 3-0 lead. A tremendous shot over the green monster in left field. And 3-0 A's in the second.
Headed towards home.
So his first at bat after the service for his beloved mother, and he blasts a home run
did an interview
at Fenway Park.
I'll stop that now. But anyway, he did an interview and basically said, I didn't have any tears left to cry because of how bad it had been. So he said, I didn't cry coming around the bases to home, but if I had any tears left to cry, I would have been. And he said it was just amazing to feel like his mom was there watching him in that moment. So shout out to Stephen Piscotty. I really hope he catches on with another team. I think he'll probably take the rest of this season off and try to get healthy again and jump on with the team next season. And not only do I wish him well on the field, but off the field and all the work that he and his father and family have done to raise awareness and research money for ALS. So always wish Stephen the best. And like you said, hope he catches on with the contender next year and can get a ring. And then one last note I had on the A's, and that's Paul Blackburn. He's out for the rest of the season. He was, this was his career year. Been pitching really well, keeping us in games, although win-loss record isn't there, but that's just because he hasn't had the run support. But absolute stud. So gonna miss him, but at least we'll get to see what's in the minor leagues and see if we can bring something up of a core next year. So
let's see here. Well, that brings us to my Buccos. I'm usually on the trying to stay optimistic side of things, but it's getting a little rough. We're on a big slump right now. We are struggling at the plate so very bad, and I'm still a little confused on what we're doing with the remainder of the season. We still have kept so many veterans on the roster. Josh Van Meter, even Ben Gamble. I mean, he's contributed, but he's not going to be part of the future of this team. I don't understand keeping these people in this position. Like even O'Neal Cruz, he's been struggling at the plate really bad. He's been making zero adjustments. He basically goes up and, if they don't give him the pitch he wants, he's striking out. He's not adjusting whatsoever. Supposedly he has somebody coming to Pittsburgh to work with him, which is great. I mean, that's what I want to hear. But we have so many of these guys taking up roster spots, and then to add insult to injury, we're in a series with Boston right now, and they're pretty well handling us. But Dennis Eckersley, they're in their booth for Boston. Middle of the game.
Hall of Fame closer
That's
from
the guy.
my Oakland days.
Yes, that guy. He was brutal. I can't say I disagree with him. I can't say that I'm upset with him, but even I was just like, okay, man,
well,
let's pump the brakes a little bit. But I understand what he's saying, because he's speaking on behalf of the fan base.
Yep.
But to tell you, I guess, what the things that he said, these were some of his comments. He called it a no-name lineup. I mean, most of these guys are not, known in every home across the United States. And he said there's no team like this, which...
Not true, but close to
that's
true.
not true. There are some teams that are in similar situations, but I get his point. He used the word pathetic pretty regularly. And then the one that just hits hard is he called them a hodgepodge of nothingness. So I mean, as a Pirates fan, obviously your knee-jerk reaction is to be angry, and like I said, not necessarily at him. I'm angry because he's right.
Yeah.
You know, Ben Sherrington, who I have always had a lot of faith in, I still do. I have all the faith in the world that he's working with what he has. I think he does have a plan. I think we've seen a lot of that turnaround with the farm system. But with that being said, after this season, if they're not making moves to win next season, all this was for naught. I mean, you're telling the fan base to basically trust us. We have a plan. Well, we've been eating that for years now. So, hey, like I said, if they don't start making moves literally next season, they should be active, both free agency, or I guess picking up, veterans, but they have to get these young guys up and they have to get them playing because we can't afford another season of, well, let's see what the young guys can do. That's what this season was supposed to be for. So a little frustrated. I mean, I'm never not going to watch them. I'm never not going to support them, but it's been pretty hard to watch this last little bit. So Dennis Eckersley, you're not wrong.
Well, and it's funny to me because he just announced last week that this will be his last season doing the booth for.
I do think that was part of it. I meant to comment on that.
No, and
I think with him stepping away, he's like, you know what?
I think that's 100%.
Call it how I see it.
He's not holding back now because he's made a couple of comments since announcing that. And I'm just like, "Whoo, don't hold back, Dennis."
It was brutal.
So,
I got nothing. Thanks, Dennis.
Just that you're not wrong. Although, the A's today started a roster of, I think, everyone on the team other than Chad Pinder was under 30. And he's the only one with any decent amount of service time. They've got like Tony Kemp. They've got Sean Murphy, but Kemp didn't start. And
right.
Pinder did. So he's the only one with service time on the roster, essentially. So I'm sure you could say that about the A's right now and probably a couple other teams that are down there at the bottom of spending. But
and there's to add insult to injury, like Brian Hayes is out with an injury right now. I mean, he should be back here soon, but all that coming together has just been rough.
Reynolds definitely took exception with it.
Oh yeah, he had a rough game. Yeah, he got ejected from the game yesterday. Unfortunately, the 2 strike calls that he got ejected, reacting to, they were actually very good calls by the umpire. But in the 6th inning prior, there were some just outrageous calls. So he was frustrated, obviously got ejected. And that's why I was telling you off air, I was excited today because 1st inning, Brian hits a, 2-run home run, second at bat of the game. So I was like, all right, maybe we're going to get going. And then it's been all downhill. I think we're down 8-2 right now. So.
Yeah, A's are up 3-1. Allers pitching, so that's a rare occasion where they're actually winning with him pitching. And Sean Murphy is the new Chris Davis. He's hit like 8 home runs against Texas, which I don't know if you were familiar with Chris Davis. He essentially, every time he played the Rangers, he would hit a home run, like literally almost 1 per game when he would face them. Don't know what it was about them, but and Sean Murphy's already got 2 today, so pretty good start.
For 3. Let's get another one.
I think that's all I had. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we cut it?
The one last thing, and it's not really a lot to talk about, but the NBA dropped their schedules.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some, some interesting matchups and stuff, some things to look forward to. The Magic, for instance, I think they're starting off, their first game's against Boston, so that'll be a good test to the young guys.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna, like I've mentioned before, I'm gonna try to get myself back in the old NBA a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Other than that, though, that's all I got.
Well, just since you mentioned that, Warriors are the top national TV games. So
Yeah,
that's going to be nice.
Rightfully so.
Because I did get to watch them more last year because they subbed them out for teams that weren't playing well towards the end of the season. But the year prior, when they had just missed out on the playoffs, I never got to watch them play. They started taking them off the highlight games and all that. So excited for that. Excited for the NBA season to start up soonish. Always feels like it's a blink and then it's back to going. But and I guess LeBron did sign a 2-year extension worth a shit ton of money. So I guess that's worth mentioning.
Well, and this is a sore spot for me, but I saw a comparison today. Back to when I still followed the Magic, this was one of the many moves that led to me taking a hiatus. But Victor Oladipo, they were breaking down the 122 million contract Indiana offered him, and he turned it down to sign, I think, like a 2.5 million with the Heat. And it was just a comparison of his not so great business decisions. And then compared it to LeBron, who's obviously raked in everywhere he's gone, and not just because of the type of player he is. He is a businessman and he's made a lot of money, but it hit me because I really enjoyed watching Vic play, but oh well.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, we just want to thank you guys for tuning in. As always, like we said, when you tune into these live events, don't be afraid to comment. We will see them and we will respond. So,
and I do want to take the chance to reiterate the Square State Sandlot Fantasy League. Like Bill said, we do have a few openings, and we're really looking forward to doing this moving forward. Having the podcasts league. So anyone interested, please reach out to either me or Bill or any of the Square State social medias. We're pretty excited about this, so I'm hoping we can get a few more people to hop in and make it a little bit larger league.
Yep. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.